Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today we got a real treat for you. Her name is Alleigh Weems, and she is the Senior Management Analyst at the City of Topeka in beautiful Kansas. Alleigh, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, what's up? Good to be here.
All right, Alleigh, I love titles, just like everybody else knows. Senior Management Analyst, it's so vague. Like senior could mean a senior in high school versus a senior citizen. Management, like, okay. And then analyst, like, come on. So give us exactly, well, not exactly, but give us a good synopsis of what your job title is and about, and kind of what you're over or what you're tasked to do.
Yeah, so it's kind of a blessing and a curse. I like to think of any analyst position as being kind of the other duties as assigned position, which is always, with good leadership can be a real treat. And it gets me into a lot of different spaces and a lot of different projects. And so as a senior management analyst with the Public Works Department, I'm in the business services division, which is another word of layers that just basically means I get to support the staff of our department. That means anywhere from procurement to capital improvement plan development with our engineers to really securing a lot of grants. That's been primarily my focus point through this particular role of mine. For others, it looks a bit different across our organization. We've got economic development analysts, and we've got business service analysts and utilities that focus on different programs throughout each of their departments. So we all kind of collectively decide what the priority is for our department. And for me in particular, it's been supporting the capital improvement plan for our project managers and then grants. So I do a lot of grant writing, management, and just kind of hunting around. Yeah.
Okay. First off, grants. Like grants is a whole nother skill set in itself. Like there's people that go all their life just focusing on grant writing alone. What's Alleigh's like go-to practice or go-to, I guess, watering hole or wherever you go to get your information on how to write a grant that's successful? Because you can write a grant, send it in, nothing happens. You could do that for years and years. So give us kind of Alleigh's tips and tricks to write grants as you're doing everything else within your job.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with a little bit of a story of how I got into grants to begin with, because I'm not a grant writer by trade. I didn't go to school for it. I kind of landed into it, kind of tripped and fell into it. But when I first got to the city, we actually did have a grant writer, dedicated grant writer in our finance department. And she had left our organization in the middle of writing a grant that was for the Safe Streets program through the Department of Transportation. And at the time, they thought, we still want to carry this grant through, but we need someone to carry the torch, carry the baton. And I said, I'll give it a try. I have no idea what I'm doing. And that was about a year and a half ago. My first grant was not successful. That application did not pan out for me, but it became kind of this rabbit hole I dove into. And then I realized, with the passage of the IIJA, that there was a lot of grants available at the federal level. And so I really got to exploring because, all organizations are facing some budget constraints. And so we have to start getting creative about funding sources and looking for what's out there and available for projects that we have that we might not be able to fund locally. So I got to looking at what we're eligible for, started digging around on grants.gov and coming up with these lists of local, state, federal grant opportunities. And from there, I just kind of picked it up and never really stopped. And it really, honestly, my tips and tricks for how to go about it is just to do it. I know that sounds kind of simple, but it was one of those things that someone had to do it. But I went ahead and I went through the notice of funding opportunity for each of the grants. That's usually what you'll see for each opportunity is this giant stack of 40 some odd pages, but that gives you exactly what you need to look for and put into an application in almost a rubric style. And if you address all the points in your rubric, then essentially you've done your job. So.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
CIP procurement. I think a lot of people know what that is already. Those are some of the big tasks, projects. Kind of give us the lay of the land of the city of Topeka, I guess, population, I don't know, square mileage, whatever, just so people know what we're kind of dealing with here.
Yeah, so Topeka is the capital city in Kansas, the Golden City, a good place to grow potatoes is what they call it as well. I'm not really sure
Not
about that one, but
Idaho? I thought
I
Idaho
think
was potato.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we got beef with Idaho for
Okay.
something like that. But we're a population of 125,000. So relatively it's a larger city than I'm from. I'm from a town of about 40,000. But we see a lot of different layers of government. So we've got our local, our county, and then obviously our state. So we also have a very large school district. We're home to the Brown v. Board Memorial, and we've got a lot of different competing interests at times. We are known to have some priority on our roadways, meaning we have a lot of work to do to repair and replace road segments, and that's a common issue that we address in our department. But yeah, what was I going to say? Sorry. This is probably
Okay.
something that you see a lot, hopefully a lot. But what's another thing I was going to mention here?
Kansas City
Uh,
Chiefs fan or no?
oh yeah, so we are
Ugh,
definitely Kansas City Chiefs fans around
okay.
here, even though we're kind of a little
Tough
distance
season
from
so
the
far.
metro.
Okay.
Yeah, they say we're a slow burn team, right?
Okay,
But
yeah.
yeah, we'll see about that. But definitely we yeah, I don't know what else to mention about
Well,
the lay
I
of the land, but
kind of a more of a not necessarily personal question, but you left a city of 40,000 and went to a city of 100 something thousand. That kind of speaks to the Midwest. I mean, I went to school in South Dakota, so I kind of know like how the population can not be as big as like these coastal states. But I did want to ask, because we see this all across the country, getting youngsters into the industry is tough. It's tough. So you left
mhm.
your hometown of 40,000, you went to school, and then you ended up in Topeka, which is the capital. What was kind of the methodology, thought process behind that? Why didn't you stay in your 40,000 or go back home after school? Why didn't you move to the coast to like LA
Mm.
or Dallas or even Miami or New York? Kind of, I don't know, maybe walk us through, because there's somebody in your position right now, or there's somebody who's trying to hire a you, and they're trying to figure out how they can grab you from, XYZ town, XYZ city, and pull them into their public agency.
Absolutely. So I've definitely been tempted to go to coastal states and kind of had that grass is greener mentality about going somewhere bigger, brighter. But kind of in the beginning of everything, I didn't know anything about local government in general. When I graduated college in my hometown, I stayed in my hometown for about 23 years until I finally moved to Lawrence, which is just down the street from Topeka. But that's where I really learned more about local government. And so for me, it was just introducing me to the actual discipline, the field. And you see all this work that goes on around us, but you don't know who does the work. And I didn't even realize that this was a career path for me until I got introduced to it. So I think for the most part, it's really just about exposure and getting people engaged early and kind of tying it back to it being, tying what degrees you're pursuing or what your interests are to the work that we do. I was a first generation college student, and my mom basically told me just get a degree in something, just get something that you can
Same.
translate. Yeah,
Yep.
because at the time she didn't really know how to guide me exactly. She was my advisor, and she told me just go and get something. So I have a communication degree, and I started, well, I started at Hy-Vee for a few months until I got my feet under me in Lawrence. But
ID. Yep.
yeah, that you gotta cut your teeth
Yep.
somewhere, and
Yep.
so I was cutting fruit at Hy-Vee, and
Literally.
yeah, exactly. So I ended up working at the city of Lawrence shortly after, and that's when the gears started turning for me, and I understood more about like, oh, I really like this stuff, and then ended up getting a master's degree. But even then, like, I think my hot take of the day is you don't necessarily need that level of education to do this type of work. It's all about the experience you get along the way. But
Sure.
yeah, exposure is huge.
Sure. Talk to me. Canon or Nikon? What are we shooting with?
Ooh, Canon.
Okay. I like it. I'm a
Easy.
Canon guy myself. I saw you
Yes.
photojournalism and then also some videography, which I'm biased to.
Yes, and because that was something I looked at for a career too, is journalism, because I really enjoyed photography, but then realized that industry was kind of trickling out for the type of work that I wanted to do. So that was kind of a heartbreaker for me, but it's still a great
Yeah.
hobby.
You should start a podcast. I heard they're pretty fun.
I
Get to talk to cool
think I
people.
got some competition.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, Alleigh. You've been at this position, or you've been at Topeka for just under 3 years. Kind of give us the I would say the career path. Where you first started out Lawrence, and then City of Eudora. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Then the Kansas Department of Labor, and then Topeka, Kansas. Kind of give us the stops that you made, then also maybe a couple of things that you've learned to be able to parlay to who you are today.
Yeah. So like I'd mentioned, I went to Hy-Vee and had to kind of figure out my postgraduate situation. But I started with the City of Lawrence back in 2019 as an administrative technician for the Municipal Services and Operations Department, which is a fancy way of saying Public Works and Utilities Department. And I did not know a single thing. I couldn't tell you what a water meter looked like. And I was on the phones talking with folks about main breaks and getting new developer projects started, new water service agreements started. I ended up becoming kind of a staff person for the Transportation Commission, taking minutes, and eventually I kind of got indoctrinated into the work. But from that point, I had great peers in the space around me that asked me questions like, have you ever thought about getting a degree in this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't get a degree in this. And I got introduced to a program at KU for city county management, which at the time, it was 2020. I ended up taking an unintended gap year on my unintended arrival to graduate school. And I stayed one more year at the City of Lawrence, where I got to kind of understand, interestingly, some of the emergency management side of being an essential worker and doing kind of the FEMA stuff and being in the incident command structure and seeing how that trickle down works from the hierarchical standpoint of emergency response. So that part was really interesting to me, going back to school and having that context. But as a part of the program at KU, we had to have an internship, a part-time internship the first year and a full-time internship the second year. So I had to quit my job essentially. And that was heartbreaking for me to leave Lawrence. But going back to school was a great decision because I met so many great people along the way, professionally and my colleagues. And so my first internship that I went back to the City of Eudora for my part-time internship at the city manager's office and just did a variety of internship things, help organize, newsletters and social media posts, and got to kind of listen in on the governing body, business of the governing body, things of that nature, and learned a lot as I was going back to school. And in the second year, I decided, what if local government really isn't my thing? What if public works isn't my thing? I need to kind of stress test that a little bit. And so I had the opportunity to work at the Kansas Department of Labor as an intern at the secretary's office. And that gave me an idea of just how the state government system worked. And that was very valuable because they were going through this new system transition from their unemployment system that had been really antiquated into the new unemployment system that they had experienced a lot of fraud. And this was a major development for their organization. And it was really great to see that. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, I really miss local government. And I never expected to feel that way. But there was an opportunity with the city of Topeka that it was just a general management analyst position. And I went in and they kind of assigned me to public works because I showed interest in going back, and I just loved every minute. I absolutely loved my job and all the things I get to do and the people I get to meet. And that's kind of my lineage, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. Let's say you're brushing your teeth one morning and you're getting ready for the day, and on your schedule for the day, you're presenting in front of the Topeka City Council the city's $25 million award-winning RAISE grant proposal, Pathways of Progress. What's going through your mind?
I'm having a heart attack inside. mostly because like my biggest fear is public speaking. Like forever, it's been the worst.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, my biggest point of advice for others that feel that similar way is it's a muscle that you have to flex, unfortunately. And
Yep.
so the experience itself, like I never declined an opportunity to do things like
Good.
that,
Yeah.
to present in general. But I was over the moon excited about that project. And so part of it was also driven by the fact that like I am very excited to share this, but
Yeah. You
also I've
worked on
got
it,
this.
right?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was pretty big. It was the second grant that I had gotten awarded, and it was just like I remember running around a lot.
I'm sure. Thanks for sharing that. All
Yeah.
right. So let's say a youngster asks you, they pop into your office, they say, Allie, what's the main skill set they should pick up to be successful as a senior management analyst? What would that skill set be?
I would say a willingness to go outside the box, like what you feel your comfort zone is. If there's a project that you think, well, that doesn't sound like anything I know anything about, because that'll happen all the time. There was actually a project that I'd worked on that was about RHID, which is Reinvestment Housing Incentive Districts. And that's more of a housing economic development thing. But I thought, gee, what an awesome opportunity to learn about what RHID is. And even though I'm still kind of fuzzy on that, it was a great opportunity to get more kind of enmeshed in the organization. So I'm not just siloed off. And the idea is not just because you want opportunity to, grow out, but just have a better understanding of the role that you serve, because it's really important to have that fulfilling factor in your job to make sure that what I do does have an impact in the overarching organization, because once you lose that, it's really difficult to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's story time. I need a story
All
from
right.
Allie when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
I pondered on this question a lot, and so I find that thankfully there are not a whole lot of issues that are just catastrophic. However, this year has been particularly difficult because of what's been happening federally with kind of the government freezing and shutting down, and a lot of action movement progress has been kind of halted on the local level because of all this going on. So a lot of grant related projects that I had in the hopper were at kind of a standstill. And I had kind of a moment of like reflection of, I think at this point it was about $33 million worth of grant funding that I've managed to secure over the past year and a half. Like that's that's kind of my magnum opus that is hanging in the balance. And that was kind of what was going wrong in my mind. But the way that, and everybody else was talking about similar things, it was kind of bringing down the mood of a lot of the folks that are working in the same space. But one thing we try to kind of keep in mind is we can control the controllables, and we can't necessarily let the work stop, and we can't just not do anything, and we just have to be able to, business as usual essentially, because government doesn't stop for anything. At least we don't. Local government doesn't stop.
I don't know. Federal
So,
does.
yeah, so federal might, but we got to keep going. We got bills to pay, and we got people to serve. But yeah, I think mostly it's been about just keeping that mentality of things might happen all around us that are uncontrollable, but we have to be adaptive, and we can only make plans up to a certain point, and then you got to make plans again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, talk to us a little bit more about the IIJA. I mean, my partner and I, Shane Silsby, we did a host of shows on the IIJA. The amount of money that was coming, and like before it got designated, after it got designated, how to like grab it, what to do, all the way leading through it. Are you like going to the federal website and clicking around and saying, hey, we can grab some of this money for XYZ project? Kind of what's your process with going and grabbing some of that IIJ money? And I guess talk us through a couple wins from that.
yeah, so I like to keep an open mind about things, but while also trying to get a lay of the land of what our current needs are. So for a lot of the grants that exist out there, I kind of there's a two-parter to it. So I do some of my own research, but I've got a great network of people that like to tell me when things are coming up, and they're very reactive, as well as, just emailing me and saying, hey, I think this would make a good project, and trying to connect the funding sources to the needs that we have. I would say we're still in our infancy of working with being proactive about grants. we're still in kind of that reaction mode, like, ooh, there's money, what can we do with it kind of thing. But definitely we've been effective in getting some pretty big federal grants. Like we've gotten a nearly $5 million Safe Streets and Roads for All grant through USDOT. You'd mentioned the $25 million raised grant. Both of those are really spectacular for us because they are 0% cost to the community through leveraging sources like we have this thing called the Build Kansas Fund through the state that offers the sharing support for the grants. So those come to us 30 million with no share to the city, but those will help promote roadway safety projects and infill sidewalk, 50 miles of infill sidewalk throughout the city, which is really great. Those will benefit our disadvantaged communities within the city. But we've also gotten some awards at the state level through transportation alternatives, the carbon reduction program, which is a federal to state pass through. And we've also gotten some highway safety improvement program funding for intersection improvements. And we've been really fortunate with all the funding
Sounds
sources.
like
Yes.
yeah.
And so part of it has been, we look at the CIP and where are gaps at? Like, what do we need to address? Others we have this app called See Click Fix. Maybe others have talked about this as well, but that is a great source of information from our residents to see, okay, we've got problem areas here. We look at PCI data that says, okay, this road segment is a priority. We look at crash data, and all those help guide what projects we want to look for. And then the grants that help fund those types of eligible projects.
Sure. What's up? Are you familiar with Google Alerts?
Google Alerts, yes.
Okay, so give us your or Allie's Google Alerts for your job, not for personal, but for your line of work.
So, man, I don't use a lot of Google Alerts.
Or like, what would be your like, if you had to have Google Alerts, like what key terms, what I guess magazine publications, like what are you keeping an eye on to see if something jumps out at you and said, hey, I need that, or I need to look into this?
Well, definitely APWA. I get the newsletters. APWA is a big one. I also look at our Kansas Department of Transportation, so KDOT. Look at different regional publications like, through Mid-America Regional Council, even though they're a little bit outside of our network. But the emphasis for me is really on like local, of course, news alerts. We always want to stay privy to what's happening in the community around us. So we're really fortunate to have a few different media outlets here in town, both television and print media. So those alerts are always on whenever we appear in the news for some reason. But generally funding sources like I had mentioned, federal government, but also just kind of making sure we got a pulse on what's going on around us.
Yeah, for sure. What's something, I mean, that's more tactical in the now. What's something that Alleigh does intentionally, weekly, daily, monthly, annually, to continue to get better and better every year?
I am a goal person. We definitely set our goals every year, even though some people say like it's a waste of time. I still think I just looked over them today because I just wanted to see like where are we at the end of the year. But I like to keep goals. I like to keep a spreadsheet, a log. I'm a list maker. I'm a Virgo, so I really like making sure I know where I'm at. But I like to set more immediate goals. But I struggle with the whole 5-year timeline thing of like looking ahead in 5 years. And especially like alluding to what I was mentioning about the federal government stuff, you just can't plan that far ahead. So I try to kind of not try to keep nearsight on purpose, but be mindful of making intentional decisions now, because you can't really fail if you do the right things in the short term and you end up in the right place in the long term.
I love that. You can for sure say that in regular life, not just in
yes.
What's considered a win for Alleigh? Like when are you expecting the pats on the back? When do you expect for the streamers to fly out of the rafters? Like what's kind of that moment of like, oh, I did something good this week, this month, this year? Like what's a win for you?
Ooh. I would say anytime there's a thank you without an action item, meaning
Uh,
like if you, especially like if you've seen, I'm thinking of right now actually, like there's this long email chain going on for something with us finance and trying to get to the bottom of a hairy problem essentially. And knowing that we get to that finish line as a group, as a team, like that's a win for me. I like being able to get it right the first time, but even if it takes 3 times to get it right, like I just want to make sure that we're supporting the people that need our help, like, and especially, sorry, I keep saying like, but with folks that manage 50 some odd projects a piece, if I can make their life a little bit easier, I know that's a win.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What's the biggest misconception about what you do? Let's say you're at a dinner party. Somebody at it always comes up. So, Allie, what do you do? And you tell them, you say, I am a senior management analyst at the city of Topeka. What do you think they think?
Like you, they're probably very confused at what that actually means. Honestly, uh this might not pertain particularly to my job title, but one thing that I hope people don't misconstrue, and there's a reason why, I hope folks don't think I'm out in the field. And there's a reason why I don't want that, because
Why?
that
Yeah.
I highly respect the folks that are out busting buns out in the field. And I am privileged not to be that person that has to report out at, ungodly hours of the day or night to go respond to emergencies and main breaks and all those things. And I I'm in an office and I don't want to be given those roses. You know what I mean? Like I want to make sure there is a distinction between my job is to support those people doing that. So if I say I work for the public works department more generally, I don't want the assumption to be, oh, are you, digging pot or filling potholes and things like that. I've done it before once, but no, I don't, and I'm very thankful for the people that do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
cool. What would you say is when people have a family or friend that works for the city, they always feel like they can call them and say, hey, what's going on here? Can you fix this? Can you help me with that? Like, what's kind of usually that bat line call that you might get from people that you know around the city?
Oh man. Uh I'm trying to think of a way to answer this that's not like
Keep it clean. Yeah.
sidebar. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the way I wanted to keep it. Like we have a council person who's in my Rotary Club, and I can't mention that because sometimes we'll talk shop there, but obviously not going to talk about that. Oh man. Well, I think what the beauty is like I'm not from Topeka, so I've had to kind of start fresh. I did move to Topeka, so I live here now as a resident, but I've kind of built out my network in a professional setting, but I don't too much get folks, knocking down my door. It's usually in a collaborative way, like, hey, let's work on this together. So it is kind of nice in that way. I don't get a lot of the pestering that I'm sure that my cohort does or my director does, that I can't even go to Dylan's and things like that. Because thankfully I can, but I definitely do have my champions out in the community that I can look at and say, hey, I thought about this. Like, what do you think? And then we
Yeah.
collaborate on that together.
Gotcha. You said Rotary. I'm a past
Yes.
president of the club back in Walnut Creek, California.
Oh,
Former
awesome.
Rotarian. Once I got married, started having kids, and just didn't really have the time for it. But great. I mean, I loved my time with the Rotary Club.
Yeah.
I guess talk to why AU would join a Rotary Club and like kind of what you get out of it and why other people should look for some of these local social clubs to join up with and
Yeah.
make an impact.
Absolutely. So this is another little rabbit hole, but I'm a firm believer in order to serve your community, it's great to get ingrained in the kind of the heartbeat of the community, not just your office that you inhabit, 8 to 5, but really getting to know what's going on, the folks that are doing a lot of community related work and things of that nature. I started working with United Way here in town, and that's kind of what got me thinking more about that type of thing and getting exposed to it. Once I kind of started with them, I wanted a little bit more. And I thought, what else can I get involved in? Rotary I didn't even think about Rotary too much. I had heard someone in passing talk about it, and then come to find out, I actually have a family member of mine who was a former president as well, and got to talking about Rotary with him, and he invited me to a social gathering and ended up going and getting to be a member. And now I'm helping out with, we do this service project where, and I'm very new, so I've not yet done this, but I'm helping to organize this project where we paint sewer lids to promote awareness of dumping and keeping our waterways clean. So I thought that was very fitting to
Yeah.
connect back to the work that I do. But basically, in a nutshell, I feel like I can be a more effective public servant when I'm involved in my community, and that's why
Sure.
I'm involved with Rotary.
No, no, I always love the moniker of service above self or service before self. And
Absolutely.
it's one of those things that I'd like, because I kind of can scratch my altruistic itch without having to like use my brain. I would just show up like, what are we doing today? What are we doing this weekend? Okay, we're like you say, painting manhole covers. Like, let's do it. Now I can, say, oh, I did
Yeah,
something positive for society today, instead of
it just makes you feel good. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And you're probably one of the youngest in your club, let me guess.
I'm
But
close.
yeah.
I am fresh blood to them.
No, I remember my time in Rotary. It was a lot of my gray hair buddies. Again, time of my life, had a good time with them. But it's one of those clubs I wish the younger generation would go, I should join up and I should help out.
That's definitely like another word of wisdom to the youth, the Gen Z millennial group, is you want to go where those groups are, because there is going to be kind of that turning tide of, they want to carry on the work, and so they need to backfill that, like succession planning in any organization. Nonprofits and community related groups are the same. Like, you should go to those folks, because they're pretty excited when people get
Sure.
involved, especially when you know they've never heard of it and they want to learn more. Like, they're excited to learn, and they're just, yeah, I have a great club too, so that also
Yeah,
helps.
and one thing I learned, when you show up to these types of organizations, they want to give back. They want to help out. You can ask them whatever question about business, life, finance, whatever. They're happy to let you know. Like, they
Yeah,
want to give back. So it's beneficial for somebody who's younger and trying to find themselves or find their career to like show up and just start asking people, what do you do? What do you do? And they'll tell you, and they'll give you the path and how they got to where they're at, which usually they're successful at what they're doing. So it
yeah.
was a good club for me for sure. Yeah. All right. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Topeka. What ask of your community in regards to public works would you put on this billboard?
It's another question I was contemplating, because I'm curious about, is this a call to action, or is it just a thoughtful, like, be mindful of this thing?
Well, I don't want you to have a positive attitude about it, not a call to action, but it's more so like, what can you ask of the community? Whenever I ask somebody in wastewater, they say, well, stop flushing flushable wipes. And like, I get that. And then I ask my streets guys or my, pavement preservation guys, and they say slow for the cone zone, because that's,
Mhm.
again, that's a big deal. And they're asking that of the community. So I guess in regards to what you oversee in public works, what would you ask of the community?
Man, I do see a lot of road repair projects, so reconstruction that takes multiple months. Sometimes over the winter, they gotta take it on to the next year. And um, recently, this is going to be kind of an aside, but it context to this statement. But I recently took a trip to Portugal, and sorry, scratch that. I recently took a trip to Costa Rica, and one of the things I
Okay.
noticed was the state of their roads. In that, some of them in spots are not, they're pretty unforgiving. And in the nicest way possible, I would want for our community to kind of contextualize the environment we're in as Americans, really, more generally. We have the worst roads in the world. We don't. And actually, we asked our PCI vendor if that was the case. He said the ones in Texas are worse. But
Okay.
I would say, in maybe a nice, jazzy, snappy way, that, be patient, be grateful for the roads that we do have. Like, at least we do have roads to drive on, and yeah, that you might have some bumps in the road, but our guys and our gals are working on it every day, and they're very intentional. And that's probably a lot too much for a billboard, but in a condensed fashion, I would just want
For
to
sure.
express, these are people that really care. And like that is evident every time they show up to work, that they're really looking for ways to save money and be effective and to limit delays and detours and things of that nature. Like you see it every day. So you kind of want to be a bulldog when you see the comments on Facebook, like,
Yeah.
these people are trying, I promise. So
Yeah. Don't read the
people are
comments.
trying, I
Come on.
promise.
Yeah. I like that. As people are trying, I promise.
I see it every day.
All right. Let's say you got removed from the country. You lost your passport, visa, all that. You can't operate in the U.S. anymore. Where would Alleigh want to operate at outside the country?
Oh man. Well, if I'm outside the country and I need Wi-Fi, then I would say I can't be in a forest somewhere unless
No,
it
like,
did have a
sorry.
Starlink.
Where would you want to do your job? Like what, I
Yeah.
guess, country, city, municipality, what area of the world would you want to do your job at, and why?
I don't know any specific place. I'm trying to think. Environmentally, I love being outdoors. I
Mhm.
love being among the trees and the shade and places I can walk and hike. So I definitely would want to be in a log cabin somewhere, probably in a mountain.
Okay.
So a
Okay.
little relatively off the grid, but still accessible. I just want to be able to get, maybe a latte somewhere. So somewhere within
Okay.
coffee shop distance so that I can see people, and maybe a library, and I'm all set.
It sounds like Portland, but we'll go with
There
it.
you okay, so Portland it is. Sounds great to me.
All right, Alleigh, the most important question. Let's say I'm coming to Topeka. I text you ahead of time. I say, Alleigh, where can I go to get the best burger in Topeka? Where are you going to send me?
I also thought about this question too, and I'm not a big burger person.
Okay.
However, there is a great grilled cheese place. It's
Okay.
exclusively grilled cheese
I
in
like it.
Noto. Yeah, it's called the Wheelbarrow, and I highly recommend that.
The wheelbarrow
Wheelbarrow,
in Noto.
North
Okay.
Topeka.
Oh, Noto.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's Noto. Yeah, Noto
Yeah.
Arts District.
All right. Well, Alleigh, thanks for hopping on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and
Yeah.
knowledge. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody you think needs to hear it. Alleigh, any final words before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you, and that, anybody who's listening, just keep an open mind, and there's no linear path ahead, and just indulge the turns along the way.
Love it. Love it. All right. Alleigh, thanks for hopping on the show. This has been the
Thank
Public
you.
Works Podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in.